Welcome to the FML Podcast, the podcast on a mission to uncover actionable insights, explore the latest trends, and to catalyze your fintech's growth. Join Growth Gorilla's founder and managing director, Shamir Sajdev, and some of fintech's hardest-hitting marketers and leaders.
Welcome everyone to today's episode of the FML Podcast. Today we're joined by Leah Glass, VP of Global Marketing at Convera. Leah, thank you very much for coming onto the podcast today.
Thanks, Shamir. Really pleased to be here.
To kick off with, could you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and your journey so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a pure B2B marketer. So I've been at Convera for about 2 years now. But prior to this, all my experience was concentrated in B2B tech. Spent a lot of time working in ad tech. And so really didn't get introduced into payments and fintech until did a little stint when I was at Amazon, which was my prior role, 4 years at Amazon, where I spent some time in the Alexa division in devices, and then spent a big chunk of my tenure in consumer payments where I worked on Amazon Pay. And that was really my first introduction to payments and to fintech. But prior to that, I was largely in ad tech. I had leadership positions at Criteo, which is an ad retargeting company, at a company called Basis, which is also a DSP, a demand-side platform company. But prior to that, I did do some time at Google and a few other big tech companies when I was in more junior roles. So that's a little bit about my journey. I ended up at Convera because our CEO was formerly a leader at Amazon, and so he and I had crossed paths there and stayed connected after he moved on to Convera.
Before we jump in, it will be great to kind of understand more about Convera. You know, what does Convera do? And obviously you've recently gone through a rebrand as well. So it'd be kind of great to understand who was Convera before the rebrand as well.
So Convera is a cross-border payments company, or actually we're a payments company. We specialize in cross-border and commercial payments. So, working with businesses to manage payments securely, smartly, and with speed. Prior to becoming Convera, we were part of Western Union Business Solutions. So, everyone knows Western Union. It's a worldwide brand, and they had a lesser known division that was dedicated to B2B payments. The Convera story is that we, a private equity firm, engaged and decided to purchase or carve out this particular business unit from Western Union. And, typically when you have something like this, you have a larger organization, for example, buying the business unit. In this case, Convera is fully owned by private equity. And so they said, hey, we're going to create this as a standalone business. And they selected the name Convera for that business. And we've been on this journey since 2021. So August of 2021 was when the plan for acquisition was first announced. And it's been, quite a journey because the business is complex. We have, cross-border payments. There's a lot of risk. There's a lot of regulations around moving money from across countries and across borders. And so in Western Union, obviously, as a global firm, had a huge infrastructure. And so Convera has basically had to rebuild that and recreate that over the last couple of years. It's been a lot of work, a tremendous amount of effort, but we believe well worth it as it has enabled us to continue to serve a fairly large customer base.
Obviously, Convera, as you said, is very focused on B2B. Now, B2B is a super broad definition. Is Convera more, say, on like the upper end of the market, the enterprise level, or do you tend to focus more on, say, the SMEs or the SMBs?
We have over 20,000 clients. And so we do have a fairly diverse base, and they range from, some very large enterprises to, extremely small businesses. However, I would say our sweet spot would be mid-sized corporates. Those are the types of businesses, especially those who are engaged in, import, export, any type of trade where they are, buying goods and services across borders, purchasing goods from China, from Australia, from whatever the case may be, and they need to move that money.
Kind of going all the way back to 2021, obviously the announcement was made to obviously purchase. You decided to move away from the Western Union brand name. One of the things I want to talk about is navigating a rebrand. And so it'd be great if you kind of talk us through that sort of process from sort of, initial planning to, your strategy for rolling that out and I suppose detaching yourself away from Western Union, really.
we were legally obligated to stop using the Western Union name at certain milestones as we moved through the process and converted different businesses in different jurisdictions over to Convera. Because, of course, the Western Union Business Solutions was a global business with entities in Australia, Singapore, New Zealand, the UK, and just over, I think it's like 30 countries or something. So it's quite expansive. Apologies for not knowing the precise number here. So the challenges were twofold. So first, logistical. We had to set up the regulatory infrastructure to actually run these businesses in these different countries to enable us to move money on behalf of our clients. So that was like the regulatory infrastructure was, kind of the first step. And then in tandem with that, and as part of that, there's all these requirements where we, of course, have to inform clients that in the future, they'll be served by Convera, no longer by Western Union Business Solutions. So there was a massive and highly complex communications effort across all of our clients with specific deadlines of when you have to do what to whom and tell people what's happening. And that's kind of the foundational piece. And it's not sexy and it's not exciting. However, it's absolutely crucial, right? And so that was the first thing that we focused on. And there was a lot of energy against that. But the second challenge is, we had this name Convera. We had developed a set of company values. There's 7 of them. But beyond that, we didn't really know who we were, right? Who are we as a company? Who are we as a brand? And so beginning to figure that out, and you do that in 2 ways. One, you do it through, honing in on some key things like what are your brand pillars? In our case, it's smart, simple, secure. Know those, what those pillars are to kind of center you. But who you are as a brand begins to emerge through the visual and the verbal identity. And the way I think about this is if you're like a person and you're developing your style, your personal style. So like how you talk, what you focus on, how you dress, how you present yourself to the world. That's what a brand is. And it also evolves and changes with time. And so one of the most interesting things that happened over the last 2 years is if you look at what Convera looked like in March of 2022, when we made our first, big announcement launch of our US business, and the way we look today, it's actually quite different. And it's been an evolution, a slow journey. So when you're in it, you don't notice. And it's kind of like a child growing up, right? You move from the different phases. And I would say Convera right now is a rebellious teenager.
Isn't there a saying that something along the lines of if you're not embarrassed of your previous work, you've waited too long or something like that? So I think there's an element of, there's no harm in obviously having evolution in your brand and your story and your values, et cetera, et cetera. So I suppose during that process and I suppose establishing values, creating brand and that transition, I mean, what were the key hurdles? And then I suspect with there being, a PE firm in place and a management team in place, there were obviously stakeholders that needed managing as well. So what did that look like for you from a marketing perspective?
Yeah, so we were fortunate because it did take a long time to get to where we are now, which is the final, conclusion of all of the various closes of the business. There was actually a good amount of time spent before I joined the firm in late 2021, where the executive team and key members of the executive team and the board identified some key things. So they developed the name Convera, selected it. They worked with a creative agency to develop a color palette, developed the values, and then also established these 3 pillars and a few mission statements. Some people, sometimes when you come in to take over marketing, there's a temptation to kind of go back over ground that was already trod. And one of the things that allowed me and my team to move quickly is I opted not to do that. I took what was given. I said, okay, let me take this. There's nothing, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with it, right? So could it be better? Sure, maybe, but anything can be better, right? Everything can be made better in theory. So at some point you just have to say, hey, let's move forward. Let's go with this. Let's see what works. If it doesn't, then if we have data to support a need for a change, then let's do it that time. And so I had this sort of this set of assets, but they weren't really linked together. The first thing we did was we set up what we call the brand house. And it's literally a house on a PowerPoint slide. And there's a roof, there's the different components of the house. And, you have your pillars, you have your values, you have your mission statement, and these things, and it begins to help you to see how it's all coming and fitting together. And so we use that brand house as kind of our touchstone that we continuously go back to it. And so even as, for example, creatively, the look and feel of the brand may have evolved, we're always going back and saying, okay, is this a reflection of our mission? Is this a reflection of our vision? Does this support our objectives in terms of where we want to be? And if the answer is yes, then we keep moving. If we don't think so, then we, take a step back and re-examine. But having that grounding of that understanding of, the things that will stay the same and consistent is what allows you to evolve the brand.
Having core values, having brand values is so important, because it not only just shapes the direction of marketing, but also I think it shapes the internal sort of attitude towards work and how people sort of approach everything that they're doing. Well, we recently did an exercise at the beginning of the year, and I would say there was a very notable difference in the way that the team was approaching their work in a positive way.
Yeah.
From a marketing perspective, kind of building upon like the brand values and suppose your brand house, how did that then shape the marketing strategy for Convera? And then how did you ensure that then resonated with your target audience as well?
It's hard. So one thing that you have to do is like, you're never going to know 100%, right? You can do market research, you can do focus groups, you can test, but at the end of the day, until it, goes into market, you never really know if it's going to resonate. So I'm a believer in just go for it, right? So we just went for it. We said, hey, this is what we have. We're going to go for it. We're going to see how the market responds. Now, it's really important when you go forward because there's a lot of things that you can talk about, a lot of choices that you can make. And so for us at Convera, in terms of the first batch of messaging that we brought into market, I focused on the things that we could back up with credibility. So a key differentiator for us is that we're experts in foreign exchange. What's my basis for being able to say that? Well, we have a team of economists who analyze the currency markets every single day and issue a daily market update, right? So for me, this was like the foundation of the content strategy. Because if I've got a team of qualified people who really know their stuff, sending out an email to clients every single day, I ask the question, why isn't everyone getting this email? Why don't we broaden the reach? Why don't we begin to distribute this in a less siloed manner? Because email is a very siloed channel. And so from there, you begin to look at what I call the order of operations. So the first thing that I focused on is the website, because your website at the end of the day is your destination. It's the place where everyone is going to end up, no matter what channel you're leveraging. And so you need to have a credible website experience. So we started there, quickly expanded to launch a blog, where we then began putting these daily market updates on the blog. And then that allowed us then to begin to really accelerate our LinkedIn strategy. LinkedIn is the primary social media channel because, of course, we're B2B. So that's where our audience is. So we do spend most of our energy and efforts there, although we're also on X and a few other channels as well. But our focus is certainly on LinkedIn. So that's how we begin. And then you have, really good understanding of having what I call a publishing platform or mechanism, which is our blog and our website. And then you have your distribution channels, right? With whether it be, email communication, social media distribution, and promotions. But you have to have a way to publish and then a way to distribute. And that's the key to accelerating content.
With sort of LinkedIn at the moment, and I suppose the bumpy landscape of X at the moment as well. How are you navigating sort of like changes in algorithm to distribute the content and make sure that your content is actually reaching your end user or your target customer?
So from our perspective, because we have an organic first strategy, we actually don't worry about it as much. Now we also do follow like all the standard best practices, making sure that we're following the groups that are associated with like our personas. So for example, we do know that most of our customers are in the finance division of their company. So like the buyer persona that we go after is some kind of a finance professional, a CFO, a VP of treasury, controller, that type of a person. So we make sure that we follow those groups on LinkedIn, that we're posting there. We're drawing in followers that way. We're also fortunate because we have quite a large employee base. And so we also really rely on our employees to promote our message and extend it outwards. And so between these two things, we were able to grow our following on LinkedIn by about 150% year over year, just on the quality of our content. So no real paid campaigns running. We do paid occasionally, but in general, all of our reach is organic and just based on leveraging the organic tools that LinkedIn offers.
How do you differentiate your content from your competitors? Because the FX space is a relatively crowded market, right? And I suppose it's somewhat commoditized as well, because obviously it's very price sensitive, on the spread. So how do you make sure your content stands out?
So there's two ways. One, I believe, you can fact check me on this, but I think that we're one of the few that actually does publish daily, a daily review of the or analysis of the market in terms of the currency market. So that's one differentiator. Like if you want a quick snapshot of what's happening in any given day, you can subscribe to the Convera Daily Market Update. The second thing we do that gets a ton of engagement is we also do a lot of macroeconomic analysis. So we publish these weekly charts. People really like them. They're very interesting. They show trends in inflation, interest rates, all these things that all of the economic metrics that tend to move markets. The consistency, I believe, is the other thing. A lot of companies, when they think about content, they think about going viral. They think about what I call one-hit wonders. And I believe that consistency wins the day. And so I think another thing that's differentiating for us is that we report and analyze the markets daily. We do it weekly from a different lens, a macro lens. We also provide a global forecast every single month with a webinar. So these are all the things. And so people can really count on us for reliability. And I would say that's our differentiator more so than other things.
And in terms of sort of measuring success, obviously, when you're, and I think this is pretty common for sort of organic first page or any brand running organic activity or any brand activity, I think it's the case. How are you measuring success? How do you know that your sort of content marketing strategy is working for you?
We use the typical metrics that everyone else does. So we look at how many views we're getting. We're very conscious of time on page. So how much time people spend reading our content. When it's on LinkedIn or published on LinkedIn, we look at engagement rates. So nothing, groundbreaking from a metrics perspective. And again, like looking for the steady state. Like for example, when you're launching content and a new brand and so forth, when you first start, you have what I call headroom, and then you hit a plateau. And then you need to find a way to break through that plateau to get to the next thing. So one element of it as well is to be continuously innovating on your consistent ground, what I call ground cover. And so in our case, like this year, for example, we could see that, the daily, the weekly, the monthly, it was going great with the webinar, but we needed to do more. So we launched the Convera Live Roadshow series. So in person, right? Global insights, local connections was the tagline for the series. I think we're going to hit about 20 cities this year across the globe with Convera Live. And so these are just things that you do. They're tweaks, they're innovations, optimizations, I should say, probably more so than innovations on the strategy that just continues to extend your reach and create more opportunities for engagement with your audience.
I'd love to hear more about about Convera Live. So what's the format of that? And is that sort of going to be embedded in sort of other conferences, or is it going to be completely standalone? The other question to that as well is, I imagine a lot of listeners, they'll be thinking, well, how do I then drive people to an event like that as well? It'd be kind of great to hear kind of how you're approaching that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so Convera Live is a thought leadership series, essentially. So the format is typically where we cover some macroeconomic trends. We cover, currency and FX, a more tactical FX forecast. If at the moment that we're doing it, we have a major research report out. So for example, right now we have our FinTech 2025 report out. So we'll do a summary of some of those findings. We often have a client as well, or a few clients who come and talk about, how they've, grown or improved their businesses by managing their FX and cross-border risk more effectively, working with Convera. One element of our services is we do have a hedging business. And so oftentimes we'll bring in one of our hedging managers to talk a bit about that, educate the audience about those opportunities. And then we have, some nice food and drink so everyone can have a good time. So that's kind of the format. It's usually about 2 hours. And we tend to pursue smaller markets, local markets. So as an example, this fall, we'll be doing a series through Eastern Europe. We'll be in Vienna, Munich, Dusseldorf, Warsaw. Because our target audience is, a lot of smaller businesses or mid-sized corporates, there's a lot of them in those countries. And of course, foreign exchange is a pressing issue for them since much of their business is done abroad.
You obviously got the content stuff that you're doing Convera Live. Are there any other marketing channels that you're doing that are probably worthwhile bringing up?
We obviously have digital programs that are running all the time. We have pretty high concentration of event investments. And then, on the brand side, we do these big activations at Money 2020. So we just came off of Amsterdam where we did one there, and we'll have a Converge stage We also have our podcast that we launched last year, and super pleased with the traction that we're getting with that. A lot of the content strategy that I believe in is about this cadencing, right? And making sure that you're giving your audience multiple opportunities to get good information, interesting information from you in multiple ways. So whether it's our blog, our website, on LinkedIn, at a live event, through a webinar, there's multiple ways to engage with Convera.
So I suppose one of the advantages of live events is that you're placing yourself sort of front and center with your target customers. That must help with sort of building trust with your target audience. It'd be kind of great to hear about sort of your approach to building trust, and then also how you position yourself as a reliable sort of authority within the FX space.
There's two ways. So first of all, obviously, because we are responsible for moving money for clients in a range of use cases, so trust is like the foundation and basis for our brand. And so at Convera, I look at it. You need to be making claims that are credible, that can be supported with evidence. With respect to like our capabilities as a business, I always go to the size of our network, the number of currencies that we provide, which many companies don't. Also, the number of clients that we've been successfully serving over the years. Our client satisfaction rates are over 80%. And, we're most appreciated by our clients for the excellent service, the personalized service that we offer, which is based on really the deep expertise of our employees. Convera, we're fortunate because of our legacy with Western Union to have, a cohort of employees who've been in the business for a very long time. So they really have deep knowledge and expertise, and our clients leverage that and truly appreciate it. So those are the elements of trust. When you do an activation at a place like Money 2020, another thing that we're showcasing is that we also have scale and resources. So by going to a place like that, being able to activate in this manner, we're also sending a message to our clients in the market that, hey, we're here and we have capabilities and we have resources. And that creates an ability to support your business alongside all of the expertise, knowledge, and track record of customer success.
I think that's so important when you're sort of kind of going up the value chain, demonstrating that you have, I think resources. Effectively, you're saying that, look, we're successful, we've got capability, we've got lots of people, we can serve you, we can kind of meet your demands and your requirements. I suppose as part of that as well, it's very, very easy to get caught up in terms of putting the brand out there. But I suppose in today's day and age as well, business owners want to make sure that there's a person behind the brand. So with that in mind, I mean, how do you then ensure that there's personability, I suppose a degree of transparency and authenticity in your marketing activity and within your business as a whole?
That's really hard to do because a lot of times, as you've probably experienced, as most of us have, especially in B2B, the messaging and the storytelling can feel quite stilted, right? Quite overworked by legal, privacy, all of these things. And so I would say it's an ongoing challenge. We do have our like verbal guidelines that we use where we try to use language that is straightforward, simple, easily understood, avoid jargon. These are some of the fundamentals, short sentences, not too long. But I would say that, like most B2B brands, we're a work in progress in this area. And, we continue to audit ourselves and check ourselves and ask, hey, is this a really jargony statement? Is this really what you would say if you were explaining to a friend what you're doing? And try to come at it from that perspective. But it requires a lot of vigilance. And actually, I know that AI is a huge topic. And in many ways, AI makes this even harder because AI, a lot of times, if you're trying to use it to, for example, scale your copywriting, it actually generates jargon. And so one of the things that then you have to do is go back and, check and so forth. So it's really hard to do. We're always working on it, trying to be attentive to it, trying to have a little fun as well. And we actually have a new campaign that's launching on Instagram in the next couple of weeks, like, sort of educating people on FX and sort of here's what you need to know about foreign exchange rates and how they can impact you. And like, if you're going on vacation to Europe this summer, here are some things to think about. And there are some really fun elements in it in terms of the creative and the messaging. And, hopefully that will resonate with audience. We don't know. We're experimenting with it right now, but I would say it's an ongoing challenge always, in B2B especially, and especially financial services.
Instagram's probably not a channel that I would have thought of. Is there any reason why you picked that as a channel is it a test or have you seen success there before?
Yeah. So one of the interesting things about our business. We actually have a very large education business. So we work with quite a few, I want to say it's in the hundreds, universities globally to help students pay their tuition. So this is actually quite a large business for Convera. It's a priority. It's a strategic vertical for us. And so we connect with students on Instagram and help them to know that, hey, when you're paying your tuition, if you're a student who lives in India and is going to study in the US, Convera is a great choice as a payment method for your tuition.
Before we wrap up, kind of looking into the future, what's next for Convera? And I suppose what's next for marketing within Convera as well?
We've been making really significant investments in technology over the last couple of years. We, for example, migrated our entire infrastructure over to AWS last year. So we're fully cloud-based today and growing our product and tech organization significantly. And, I'm a B2B tech marketer. So you're wondering, what am I doing at this, financial services company? It's because we want to become a fintech. So I'm really excited about the new products and services that we'll be releasing next year and getting the opportunity to really help our clients even more so, not just with the, great personalized service, but also with, modern leading edge technology. So this is the next phase in the Convera journey. And I would say that the last 2 years we've spent really just establishing ourselves as a player in the fintech payment space. And now the next couple of years are going to be about differentiating ourselves as a real innovator on the technology side.
Before we wrap up, and I'll let you go, I'll take you through our quick fire round. What podcasts are you listening to at the moment, or would you recommend?
So I have to admit, I don't listen to very many fintech podcasts, except for Converge, which is the Convera podcast. But I'm a big fan of The Daily from the New York Times. And I'm also a huge fan of Hardcore History from Dan Carlin.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And then I suppose aside from Convera, what fintech or financial services company, brand or app are you most interested in, or do you like to keep an eye on?
I always come at it from the perspective of a marketer. So if I can just tweak the question slightly, I'll share with you just kind of my two sort of favorite fintech brands that I really admire in terms of what they've done. So first, MasterCard. Just the way they've evolved. It feels, I know, a bit boring, the card thing, the orange and the red. But, if you just kind of look back and look at their journey and how they've moved, it's pretty amazing what they've accomplished. And then Stripe, the way that creatively they tell their story and especially their visual brand. It's really beautiful, yet it's very techy. They're awesome. I really think they've done an amazing job over the last 10 years or so and probably influenced creative across the board.
What books are you currently reading or would recommend to our audience?
I am reading a book called The Covenant of Water, which is a novel about Kerala, the state in India. I tend not to read business books. I tend to read novels. So that's what I am currently reading.
What is one thing I haven't asked you that I perhaps should have?
Well, you did put in the notes, which I liked, which is what's the best bit of life advice you've ever received? And so I'll give you the answer. It's probably one of the things that's helped me the most. To focus on the outcomes, not the process. People oftentimes become very attached to this is the steps. These are the things we have to do. And just remain focused on what you want to accomplish and feel comfortable changing the way you get there. Whatever the outcome you want, focus on that and don't get attached to the process. And then have real clarity on, the things that will remain the same for you. So your values, your goals, your objectives. And this is true whether it's in your personal life or business.
That's good advice. Fantastic. Well, Leah, thank you very much for jumping on the podcast today.
Really?
It's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much, Shamir.
The FML Podcast is brought to you by Growth Gorilla. To find out how our marketing growth experts can boost your fintech's growth, head to growthgorilla.co.uk. And make sure to search for the FML Podcast in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Don't forget to click follow to ensure you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Growth Gorilla, thanks for listening.